And welcome into another episode of the Kentucky Couple Travel Podcast. So it has been a little while as we've got started with school and getting everything back on track. We're now approaching the holidays, and so we're kind of ready to start back the second half of Season 2. We have 5 podcasts planned to bring to you between now and Christmas, and that'll wrap up Season 2 as we get to 10 episodes. And look forward then to making some more travel memories as we get ready for Season 3. So today, we're going to fill you in on a trip that we took back just before school started back, late summer. And this was a trip that Whitney's really wanted to do for a long time. And we just really enjoyed ourselves. So Whitney, why don't you tell everybody where we went and kind of a little bit about it.
Yeah, we went to Prince Edward Island in Canada, and it's actually a trip that I'd wanted to do my entire life. It was probably my number one trip that I've always said I wanted to do. I don't know why we never really thought about it before, but we were just kind of like thinking about trips, and I was like, well, let's just try that one, and we did. And I'm so glad we did because it was a really wonderful trip, and I probably could go there anytime we go on a trip, or every summer I would love to just go because it's just such a beautiful place. And I love Prince Edward Island because growing up I was a huge fan of the books, Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Maud Montgomery, and my grandma and me, or my mama should I say, that's what I call her, but we would always watch Anne of Green Gables like all the time. It was our favorite show, so it just, I don't know, it was a time and era that I love, and I always wanted to live in because that's just my time frame. I just love that type of period drama, so I was just really excited to go. So
yeah, so we were able to make that happen as we we rearranged. We had a bunch of different plans. We kind of bounced around. And we had, we took our road trip through the Midwest that we talked about a couple episodes ago. And this just kind of come up spur of the moment. We thought about some cruises and things. But at the end of the day, this just seemed like something that Whitney really wanted to do. So we took.
I don't know why I always seem to think it was out of like reach or something. It was kind of weird. When we were thinking about it, I was just like, thinking about your dream trips, and I was just kind of like, well, why don't we just try that? And I was like, well, why didn't we think of that before?
Yeah, it wasn't super expensive. I think like $300 round trip. We flew on Delta. Air Canada.
Air Canada.
Yeah. So we'll get more into that here in just a few moments. So just kind of briefly, we left out of Nashville, flew to Toronto. And then from Toronto, we connected over to actually Charlottetown on Prince Edward Island, which is really the only major city on the island. You're looking at from one end, east to west. The island is about 150 miles across, and Charlottetown is kind of right in the middle, in the only major city. And when I say major city, it's still
not major.
No, it's. I'm trying to think. For those in Kentucky, it's much smaller than Lexington, maybe Richmond size.
Yeah, that's what I was
maybe
going to say,
somewhere
Richmond,
in there. So
similar, they have similar like stores and things. It's like a Richmond, really, and they have some of the stores like Lexington Wood. It's just in a smaller,
more confined space. And then it is a little bit more geared toward tourism. But as always, we're going to go ahead and jump in. We have our top 5 list from Prince Edward Island. So I'll go ahead and start us out. My number 5 was just kind of the natural beauty of the island, and there was just these huge fields, and that we kind of butt up against the mountain. It, in your mind, almost what I would imagine Ireland's like, just so green. But then you have the ocean there. I just bought my drone not too long before we had went over the summer, and it was one of the first times I'd traveled with it, and we were able to, fly it some, and it was just phenomenal. I think some of those videos are already, they've been on YouTube for a while, so if you've not seen those, you can go check those out, some of the drone footage from there. So just the natural beauty for me was amazing. One of the most beautiful places that we've ever been. So what about you with number 5?
Number 5 for me, I put the beach house that we were on. I have a really hard time making like 5 or anything I like or dislike because I just really liked it all.
Yeah.
But number 5, we stayed on a little beach house that I really, really liked. It was right on the beach, but their beaches are different. It's not like one that you think of as going and laying out in the sun and swimming. You can go down there and see it. I mean, it's a little bit sandy, but it kind of is like, it reminds me of the beaches sort of like Maine. If anybody's ever seen them, it's a little, there's
rocky.
a lot of rocky mountainous area, a lot of trees around, not a lot of beach. You have to get there at a certain time or you wouldn't have any beach to sit on because it kind of reminds you of a lake, sort of. It's just different, and there's a lot of seaweed, and I know we saw a lot of dead crabs and stuff, but our friend Rachel went with us on this trip, finally got to go on a trip with us, and she and I would go down and see it some in the evenings. That was just really nice, but it's different as any other kind of beach. Not a whole lot of people there. We would see maybe one other group or something, but the little house we stayed in was perfect. It was small and
that was actually my number 1.
Oh, wow.
I love that house. I think that was a place like, I could go back to.
It was relaxing.
Yeah. We could have went and stayed there at that house and just laid around and.
Well, it's just back roads, dirt roads to get to it. Everything, a lot of stuff there's like those red dirt roads, and
you could see the ocean from the porch, and you could walk down to the ocean.
It was the perfect
easily.
size. It was kind of like a tiny home, like you would buy. That's like one of these places, one of these little buildings.
Had
that
a
were
small
built.
kitchen and a living room and a little
Upstairs,
dining room. Had an upstairs with an extra bedroom and then a bedroom downstairs.
Yeah.
So we all kind of had
nice
our
porch.
own space. Yep, we had one bathroom, but it was just so nice. It had a nice little fire pit. It had a nice sized yard. You were kind of secluded, but at the same time, like everybody was friendly close by.
Yeah, it was like you were their neighbor or something. They'd wave at you and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And then the one thing about it was, we did it on Airbnb. I
Yes.
almost lost my train of thought, but we did it through Airbnb, and it was a really good price for the 4 or 5 days that we stayed or whatever. And it was clean and had
less than
everything we
$100 a
needed.
night.
I mean, we wouldn't have had to leave if you didn't want to because it had kitchen and all that. So.
Yeah, we bought some groceries and kind of just made it our home for a few days, and it was just something I thought was a fantastic trip. But yeah, I love the beach house. That was my number 1. So why don't you go ahead with your number 4?
Okay, number 4. If I went off here, I'll pull it back up. Number 4 for me is what's sitting in front of you. There's 2 things on my number 4. Raspberry cordials, number 1, and number 2 was a brand of ice cream called Cal's Ice Cream that I absolutely fell in love with it. Clifton is taking a drink of it right now. The raspberry cordial, if you've ever read Anne of Green Gables, is a drink that they make. It's like a raspberry pop almost, or soda, whatever.
It's carbonated. It's a pop.
But it's super good. It's the best. And in the book, Anne goes to get the raspberry cordial for her friends and stuff that comes over because they make it like a homemade in the book, and you can actually find the recipe online, and I am aiming to do that. I've not done it yet. But she accidentally gets like a wine out instead of raspberry cordial and causes one of her friends to get drunk, because they're really Christian, and it causes like a big thing where she can't even speak to her friends anymore. They're not allowed to be together. All this stuff. It's a big thing in the book, so I had to try it. And of course, they had it in a lot of the little stores up there. So we got a little crazy over it. We're drinking one about every night. This raspberry pop. I don't drink regular pop, but this I did. And it just tastes so good. It's got natural ingredients. It's delicious. But we literally, Rachel and I and Clifton fell in love with it. And we drank one almost every day in the evening sitting on the porch, which was fantastic.
Yeah, it's branded Anne of Green Gables.
And I need to drink it.
So
it's got her picture on it.
We're rationing them out. We actually bought some and had them shipped home.
God, I forgot how good that was.
So we had some shipped home, and they were really nice. Glass bottle adds a little bit to it, I think, like the old glass Cokes.
I forgot.
But yeah, it's bottled right there in Charlottetown on PEI, or Prince Edward Island, and
it's worth trying.
Yeah,
you
it's
can
really
get it
good.
at the, I think it's the Anne of Green Gable or the chocolate
you can-
store or something. That's
you
what it's
can-
called. Google it.
Yeah, you can Google Anne of Green Gables raspberry cordial, and you can order it and have it shipped.
It's not that it's like it's like $20 or less, or
Or
it might be.
taste.
No, it might be even less than that. But you have to pay a ton of shipping to
Yeah,
come from
so it's
Canada with
heavy.
those glass bottles of liquid, but it was worth it. Rachel and I split a double pack of them. She took some, I took some, and we are rationing them out. And then the Cal's ice cream is a thing that's right in that area, and I'm not a big ice cream eater. Like, I do eat ice cream some, but I think that was the best ice cream I'd ever had in my life. And I still follow them on Instagram, and every time I look at their posts, I'm missing it, because the only time I may possibly, but if we don't go back in that area, is if we go, I think maybe up toward the Niagara Falls, Canada side, might have one close by. But Cal's ice cream and raspberry cordial is where it's at.
Yeah, it was great. I'm actually going to skip my number 4 because I know you're going to have it a little higher on the list, and we'll talk about it kind of on your terms since this is kind of your trip. But I'm pretty sure my number 3 is not going to be something you have. I loved how self-sufficient the island was.
No, I don't have that, but I do get that.
They were really proud. Really proud people.
A lot of local.
Yeah, a lot of local. I mean, when you were in Charlottetown, you had some chains. And, occasionally if you get to a small town, there would be a chain restaurant. But for the most part, it was just completely...
Was there a chain around us anywhere to eat or anything?
What was the town we went to? Saint something...
I can't remember, but that's where they had the Avonlea, the book. There's the town like Avonlea, and they had like the little town set up there.
They had a couple maybe Little Caesars or Domino's.
Yeah, I mean it isn't
something.
many.
No, there was very few chain restaurants once you got out of Charlottetown, but that didn't stop these people. They had pretty much tons of stuff to do.
There were things like, it's weird because you don't see like go into a butcher. Or go in somewhere to get what you need.
Like our house, like we said, it was kind of secluded down like a dirt road, and you drive back 5 to 10 minutes, probably out to this little convenience store. They had gas, they had some groceries, but yeah, like Whitney said, they had a full-time butcher. It was almost like stepping back in time, and there was something about that I really liked. That these people, they're isolated from the rest of Canada. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. But it didn't stop them. They knew they would bring in tourists, and they built everything they needed themselves. They have huge industry that the rest of Canada depends on. They major manufacturing of like airplanes and things, airplane parts.
I forgot about
a lot
that.
of agriculture, and I just thought it was great. The people there were so nice.
It was neat to see that again, because we don't see that anymore. Like, a lot of our mom and pop stores aren't here.
No, and they were really proud of their history. That museum we went to, man, there was just so much stuff.
Little 16-year-old girl working, and she was just proud as she could be.
Yeah, and like, I was like, have you grown up here? Like, is this your family running? She's like, I've worked here for 2 weeks. And it was just so nice.
She knew everything.
It was so nice that you could tell she took a genuine interest in it. And it was beyond even... the Montgomery lady that offered.
Oh yeah, there's so much more.
A lot to that island that they were so proud of, and I just thought that was so neat to see a community that was like that. It reminds you a lot of kind of what we were at the very tail end of growing up. I think of a lot of, like, here in Eastern Kentucky used to be local, like really proud, a lot of local people, and self-sufficient, and I really love that about it. So what about you? What's your number 3?
My number 3 was like the lighthouses and just the beaches and the scenery in general for me. It's one of the most beautiful places. We have some really good video and stuff on our Kentucky Couple Facebook and Instagram. If you want to go, and YouTube, if you want to go and look at that. But we climbed those lighthouses, which was terrifying because we climbed them there and they're straight up, and the ladders are straight up, and it was quite scary but fun, tiring. But we got to go all the way up in Seacal Lighthouse we went all the way up in, and did the drone footage there, and it's just beautiful. Like, it is so peaceful and relaxing, and it just takes you back in time, and it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, that was my number 2. I really thought it was the lighthouses. They were picture perfect, like kind of what you imagine. They were right up there, I think, also in Canada. When we went to Halifax and Peggy's Cove, it was very similar. And even there, the lighthouse, the people were so friendly. we ask, like, do you care if we fly our drone? You're in another country. These people are, like we said, they're very proud people, but they were always super friendly. And I said, do you mind if we fly our drone? We'll make sure, that we're not disturbing anybody. They're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And they asked, will we be posting it somewhere? We said, yeah, we have an Instagram and YouTube and things, and they made sure that we shared that with them, and they, they wanted to see everything when we were done, and they were excited as we were. And they had a nice little store there, and you could spend a week going to lighthouses, like every corner of that. We didn't get to see even half of them, but it was just phenomenal. I love that. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's kind of the halfway point, kind of your list at 3. We've worked through quite a bit of mine. Let's go ahead and talk about things maybe that we didn't. I don't even want to say didn't enjoy, but like could have been better, or things that you wish were different. And there's not much because it was just so.
Well, there's not really any for me except one thing. The mosquitoes will kill you there. They will eat you alive. I don't get bit by mosquitoes very much here at home, and you can ask Clifton. Like we go outside, he gets eat alive, but I don't. And they like attack, and they eat. And when we left,
immediately when the sun sets.
Yes, so does the sunset. My friend Rachel, she had a thing. She said at 9 p.m. because it's kind of when it starts to get dark. She said at 9. They come out. So when we would go outside, she was like, at 9 o'clock, we got to be back in because I've never seen anything like it. And then when we came home, I had big sores risen on my arms and stuff where they had bitten us so bad.
And it would be like just swarms
and
of
I think it's because close to the beach, it's like there's just a lot of seaweed. There's a lot of, it's like a lot of wet and trees and yeah. And it's outdoorsy. But I don't know. I looked them up. They were a different type of mosquito, and I don't know if it's just the American blood. They loved it.
Yeah. Something new, I guess. But yeah,
it was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was intense. Now, for me, what I'll say is it wasn't. The mosquitoes. Yeah, they were brutal. But for me, they're always bad. I hate mosquitoes. And it wasn't anything that could have made our trip better. But just for the people there, the isolation really is like.
It's pretty bad.
Startling.
For us, it was good because that's what we wanted.
Yeah. But living there, so just as it's like we said, I'm going to say 30 miles straight across, top to bottom, 150 miles east to west. So it's kind of like a county almost, or a couple counties put together in Kentucky. A very small place. And there's one airport. Mm-hmm. There is one bridge that gets off the island, and we just happen to be really close to it. We could see it.
We wanted to go on the bridge, because it takes you over to, is it Nova Scotia?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we'll tell you just about that here in just a second. And there's also one ferry that you can drive the car to the boat, and the boat will take you across. That's like a couple-hour trip each way, and it costs money. I'm not sure exactly the price was on that, but what I do know is the bridge that goes across that we were close to.
We could see it from our house.
Because we thought about driving over, just there was a city over there, exploring. It's a toll. I think it was 8 miles across.
Yep.
$50 each way. And that's not just for us being out of towners. That was $50 if you live there. And it's going and coming. So we were, like we said, we went to that museum and spoke with the really nice young lady that showed us around and showed us the old schoolhouse and things. And as we were walking around there on the property, she said she was asking us all about flying, and she was scared to fly. And she said she'd been off the island one time her entire life.
Across that bridge.
Yeah.
No other place either, just across that 8 mile bridge.
Yeah, she had never, one time her entire life for like a day.
She was 16.
Yeah, and she was 16 years old. And it was just...
I couldn't believe
it.
Because we wanted to ride it, but once Clifton and I was like, I would have cried if I'd have got over there. I'd have been like, what? $100 there? But I would have just been like, if that would have cost me $100, that would have been... I couldn't imagine. Because we would have been shocked. If we hadn't asked, we would have went and had to pay that.
Yeah. And, I don't know, just to me, that kind of isolation, living there... it's nice, but I don't know if I would want to...
I think it takes a special person. You have to be used to it.
Yeah, I think, you're born there. That's obviously one thing, but I think that's something that I don't know whether it be federal officials, the local officials, somebody needs to come up with a plan, you know.
Or at least give them some kind of like a pass, a
Yeah.
yearly pass or something.
And that's why I asked. I said, so is that just for like out of towners, people coming in? She's like, no, that's for us. And I couldn't believe it. It was just unreal how isolated
And I
you are
think
there.
at one point there wasn't a bridge, and because we walked in
Yeah.
the museum, it was all about like there was all ferries that you would take, and people would take those,
Yeah,
and
now
they
it's down
seemed
to just one.
pretty prideful about those
Yeah.
ferries because that was a big ordeal. I think when they took them out.
And my mind kind of went blank here. I can't remember what I
We're
was going to
tired.
say.
We had another trip this weekend. We'll get to,
Yeah.
but eventually.
But anyways, it was just amazing. Oh, I remember what it was now. Just to kind of put in perspective how far away this city is. You know, it's another time zone. It's the Atlantic time zone. So we're used to here in the Eastern time zone, everybody being behind us. Like if you're talking about in the Central time zone, like Chicago or out west where your brother's at in California, 3 hours behind. But they were ahead of us.
That was the
they're
first
so
time we
far
were
east.
ahead, but it is weird being ahead. Ahead is so strange.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
it was a 2-hour flight from Nashville to Toronto. From Toronto to Prince Edward Island was 2.5 hours. So you are a long ways.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I would say negative was Air Canada.
Oh, yeah.
By far the worst airline we've flown on.
Yeah, we have flown a lot, and we have never, rarely, if we've had a delayed flight, it's just been like an hour or two.
Yeah, and you know, weather happens. Things
Yeah.
happen. But there was no rhyme or reason.
No, every flight was delayed.
by at least 30 minutes. Some of them up to like 2 hours. And I think the part of it is you know, Canada is different from the United States in the fact that there's not as many major cities. And so Air Canada, its main hub on the east side is Toronto. And Toronto's airport is one of the most disorganized
It's crazy.
airports I've ever seen. We had a relatively early flight. I'm just making up these numbers because I don't remember now. But let's say we were at gate A30. And we're walking, the signs say straight ahead, you know, gates A20 through A40. Well, we're going to A30, so we're walking. Well, all of a sudden we get to a wall, a dead end, and it says gates A28 to A40 are straight ahead, and it says these doors are right now being used for domestic flights. At a certain time, we will open this wall and open them for international flights, which we were. We were going back to Nashville from Toronto that morning, and it was like 7 a.m. So the lady next to us, her plane started boarding at 6:30. Her plane was supposed to leave at 7.
That was so
and it was
crazy.
6:45, and they hadn't opened the doors yet.
I was
And
shocked.
So, you know,
They were asking us. We were like, I don't
and
know.
so the best you can do, that lady's getting there, and they're starting to board at 7 when it should be taking off. And so and I think that's probably the root of their problem is the airport's probably not big enough to meet demand. There's too many gates that are used for multiple uses, and I think they just are backed up. And so if you're starting out, your first flight of the day is delayed by 30 minutes.
Yeah, everybody's
And
delayed.
then you're delayed
Domino
30
effect.
minutes, and by the end of the day, you know, it's 2 hours. It just kind of stacks. And so, yeah, I do not recommend Air
Yeah, I
Canada.
didn't like them.
But it was a lot cheaper than anywhere else, and it was the only airline that really was
yeah.
flying in to Prince Edward Island that we had
Won't be
access
my
to.
choice again.
No. But we'll probably have to if we ever go back.
And I probably will go back.
Yeah. All right.
Hopefully
so
sooner than later.
that gets us to your number 2.
My number 2 was the play Anne and Gilbert, the musical. I absolutely loved that play. It was so good. Me, Rachel, and I think you liked it too.
That's my number 4.
Okay, we just absolutely loved it, and it was worth going to, and it was just the sweetest play.
I had low expectations. I
You hate musicals.
hate musicals. Outside of Lion King and Toy Story, I'm not a musical type of guy. I hate them. I think it. I guess I'm a real logical person,
And I love musicals
I'm
because
not a-
I'm artistic.
I'm not imaginary. Like I hate just imagining. I never had a real good imagination. I always could deal with things that were right in front of me, And I think anytime like you're in a serious scene of a movie or a play, and then they just break out in a song, it takes me out of it. Like it's not real anymore to me, and it just drives me bananas. But it was great. I
loved it. It was so good. It was really well put together. Costumes, the acting, all of it. It wasn't corny like some musicals can be. I get that, even though I love them. The music was put in perfectly well, like it was made to go in those parts, and it just wasn't strange. But I just loved it. The little place we saw it, little college thing we went to, it was really nice.
And it was, I'm gonna say, seated 1,000 people, 1,500, and it was full.
On a weekday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was just a weekday, random weekday.
Yeah, middle of the day, not late at night. It was like 11 a.m.
Yeah.
And it was full. You could tell they put a lot of pride into it.
The people loved it.
Yeah, the production.
I loved the songs.
The production quality was really high.
Yeah.
And it was.
Because I'm like Anna Gilbert. It's just my story. And it was just so beautiful in person to watch them. And me and Rachel loved it. Rachel loved it so much. She actually bought the soundtrack. And the last time I saw her, she was listening to the island. We're on Prince Edward. I loved it.
It was catchy.
And I think I might have to get the soundtrack too, actually. It just makes me feel better.
Yeah. So it was Anna Gilbert.
Anna Gilbert, the musical.
Yeah. So I thought it was great too. And it's my number one musical, I'll say that.
Probably one of his only musicals.
Yeah, like, we saw plays on Broadway, several.
Nutcracker. I love it. Don't get this started on the Nutcracker. The Nutcracker's amazing. Don't listen to me.
I took you to see it twice, and I've hated it.
I was thinking about seeing it again this year.
Well,
so
I'm glad you didn't.
I haven't got tickets yet. That don't mean I won't.
So, all right. So I guess that gets us to your number one. And I think we went through my 5. So what's
my number one was
here?
All the Ann-Tours. It just makes me want to cry thinking about it. So I loved it. I loved going to the Green Gables house. I loved going to like the farmhouses where her family lived. I just loved seeing all that in person and visualizing like what I've read about for so many years. The book Anne isn't about Lucy Maud Montgomery. She just based that book around her life, kind of
and
similar people, even though the names are changed. The storyline is different. It's different, but the places that she wrote about, like where she wrote, like I got to see like where she wrote some of that stuff, and it was so beautiful and so nice, and I just
now if I'm understanding right, the Green Gables house was a neighbor of her aunt's, correct?
I thought it was either that or a cousin or something, but they were. I think somehow it was in relation to her. I forgot, but then because there was like a walking, like you could take like a walk in some of the places in the story that you'd read about, like it would be like there was Lover's Lane in the story. There's all these things where like her and Gilbert walked all, but you could do that and walk through there and see all that.
Yeah, it was based on real
places. That just was what I went for and what I wanted to see, and it was just perfect for me because I loved it.
Yeah, and so what we did kind of the day we got there, it was a relatively short trip, over 3 nights?
I think I was at 4 nights, and yeah.
Yeah. So the first day we got there, it was late. We rented a car, drove out there. It was like 45 minutes to an hour drive from the airport. And so I told Whitney, I said, make me a list. What's the things you want to see? And I pretty much mapped it out, and we would make sure to go everywhere. I think we went everywhere you wanted to see.
Yeah.
And we went around the island. We saw her birthplace, like her childhood home. We saw, like you said, the Green
Lake
Gables
of
house.
Shining Waters.
Yeah, the museum. It was all really nice.
If you're an Anna Green Gables fan, you know what I'm talking about. But
yeah, I'd never read the
he
book.
didn't, and I kind of filled him in, and he found it. So
yeah, the play though.
But
was
they give you like really good maps and things. So if you hadn't read the book or you didn't know what I was talking about, you could figure it out pretty easily.
Yeah, and you can still enjoy it. And you know, I'm a history person. I like any kind of history.
Yeah,
I like, and just so the local history alone was enough for me. And then the history of the book, it was amazing. So I enjoyed it, even though I'd never read the book. I've never read the movie.
You just heard me talk. Of course, you don't read a movie,
or watch the movie. I'm sorry,
but I have talked about it so much. I've watched almost every version of it that has came out, like any type of short, like series, any movie, and yeah.
I feel like the musical is probably enough. I understand the gist.
Yeah,
of it.
well, and I'm a big fan, so
yeah.
And you've heard me talk about it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know it's our favorite book. So, anything else you want to add for this episode?
I just wish everybody could experience Go if you would. I've heard a lot of people tell me that was something they would always wanted to do, and it wasn't that expensive. It was cheaper than going to Myrtle Beach or to wherever. But
much.
yeah, we loved it. It's worth it. It's beautiful, relaxing, great trip.
Yeah, if anybody's looking, like I said, if you need advice, we're more than willing to sit down and talk with you, help you plan a trip. Like
I would love to help you plan that trip.
find places to go, and
Canada's a pretty cool place.
Yeah,
I mean, in general, I love Canada.
It's so unique. The fact
I tell Clifton because we went to England. And we've been to Canada, and I said they're like if the England and Canada merged and had a baby. That's what if America and England merged and had a baby, it's Canada because Canada has
French
some American
influence.
Yeah, some American like stuff, some English stuff. It's really strange, but it's a beautiful country up there, and it's clean, and the people have always been super nice to us, and I really like Canada. We've been on both sides, east and west parts of Canada.
Yeah, it's beautiful,
and I really liked it. So I think if you ever want to check Canada out, it's a pretty cool place.
Only thing we didn't get to see is a Mountie.
Yeah, I've been waiting one because I'm okay. So that's another thing I'm obsessed with is Wind Calls the Heart, and that is a dream of mine. I wanted to see a Mountie in uniform, and I'm sure they don't go around in those uniforms. I think those are just like special time, the red
like the Marines
coated uniform.
Sort of.
But I really would have liked to seen one, and maybe one day we will because one of my next trips I'm hoping to do one day is to go see the set of Wind Calls the Heart. Maybe I'll get to see one or at least see one dressed up like one. And we didn't get to see a moose yet, right?
Yeah, still not.
That is still on our list, so we're working toward that.
All right, guys. Well, that does it for this episode. We'll be back next week. Like I said, we have 4 more after this one planned to finish out season 2. So next week we're going to be looking at the top 5 weekend cities to visit for like a little weekend getaway. So hopefully you'll be looking forward to that, and tune in and listen next time. See
ya.